Gender-based violence continuing to plague many women in South Africa, women facing quadruple challenges of inequality, unemployment, poverty, and gender-based violence and femicide. For many women and girls in the country, the war zone is not the battlefield, but their own homes. And the war is orchestrated by their own partners or people who are supposed to protect them. We're now joined by Phinah Kodisang. She's the Chief Executive Officer of Soul City Institute, a social justice organization that focuses on young women and girls and the communities they live in. Phinah, thank you so much for making the time today. Soul City, one of the oldest social organizations in the country, and looking at multiple challenges in our societies. But what support do you give or provide to gender-based violence victims?
Good morning, Desiree, and thank you for this opportunity. I think the first line of prevention is education. We need to educate people on what their rights are. We need to educate people on what violation looks like, because many people are violated without knowing, because it's normalized, it's part of life. You know, in culture, it's allowed. So people don't know the difference between violation and what is culturally acceptable. So Soul City's contribution in the fight against gender violence is education on how it can be prevented, challenging the social norms in our communities, but more so empowering young women with information, with knowing their rights, knowing what is availed in law, and also what support they can get if they are violated. That's the contribution we are making.
What kind of pushback do you get in communities as you try to dismantle these long-held structures?
Because the territory we are entering is that of culture and religion, we get a lot of pushback, from cultural leaders and even families that are very cultural, who believe that we are there to cause problems in the family. We are there to disrupt, and we are there to disrupt, and we are there to make sure that we dismantle, as you say, these norms, So we get a lot of pushback. We are labeled, even as individuals, because we identify as feminists. We believe that we need an ideology, a political ideology that will help us fight this system. And we identify as feminists, and you know how feminists are labeled. We are labeled angry, frustrated, confused women.
So how do you balance this out? Because on the one hand, you're doing this amount of work that Soul City is doing, hoping to change society, and yet there's this wall against the efforts that you're putting up. How do you get through to both the people you're trying to educate and the people who are perpetuating the stereotypes?
We don't give up, because we believe so much in what we do. If you remember, Soul City was very instrumental in the fight against HIV. We put every effort to support the different campaigns that government had, using social behavior change communication, sending out key messages that are now entrenched in our different communities on how to prevent HIV. We use the same strategy, and of course, even if there are those who are against us, we continue, because we believe in the work that we do, and we believe that if one individual changes their behavior, that individual will impact other individuals in their circle, and that's how it snowballs into more people being challenged and more people changing their behavior. So we do work with individuals, and as you rightfully introduced our organization, we also work with the communities they come from, because in an ecological model, you cannot only isolate or capacitate the individual. The individual does not live in isolation. They come from a family. That family comes from a society that forms a community, and it morphs into all of us. So you need to make sure that whatever you do with an individual, which is a Soul Buddies member or a Rise Club member, you also do some work with the family. So the parenting programs that we have also supports that, but also you need to work with the broader society, you know, challenging the harmful norms by doing workshops, by doing campaigns, by using radio, you know, using all mediums to reach every person.
So how is Soul City engaging with the conversation of gender-based violence in South Africa?
So social media is very impactful in South Africa. There's a space where young people are, you know, they engage there. But also, we also work in schools with teachers and, as I indicated, school governing bodies, which are parents. And we also work outside of that realm through radio, reaching now the broader community. And the main message is to say, let's dismantle harmful patriarchal norms. People need to understand what those look like. You know, if in a country we still allow a young girl, a 14-year-old, to get married, we are promoting statutory rape. So people need to know. If practices like ukutwala are still allowed in society, you know, people need to know that they are violating. It's like kidnapping, trafficking, human trafficking. And if you understand instruments that our government has signed up to, you would know that, you know, that is not allowed in CEDAW and in other instruments. So we work with young people mainly and children, but we also make sure that in the schools, in the communities, the same message is given. And on social media, we give out numbers, you know, where they can reach, like to Zella care centers. We also talk about the psychosocial well-being, giving information on how to take mental care of your mental health. We also talk about, you know, how can you raise your voice in the community, report, go to the police station, challenge the system, come back and report if you are not making any leeway in reporting your case. But we've also introduced feminist tech, feminist technology, because with lockdown, we understood that women could not go to police stations and report. So they needed something, a companion in the safety of their home to assist them with still accessing information and with being able to reach out. So we have a bot, it's a robot called Rainbow. You go to Facebook Messenger and you say, hello, Rainbow.
Phinah,
and this bot will start chatting to you and you are able to report.
Because we are time-tied, I just want to ask you just quickly, what we want to know is, are all these efforts working when continuously the gender-based violence scourge just keeps increasing in South Africa?
Behavior change is not a linear process, unfortunately. There are efforts that all of us in the NGO sector are putting here. There's government that needs to play its role. There's cultural practices that needs to be dismantled. Religion must also be dismantled. So if all hands are not on deck, of course we will see these numbers rising, because we can do so much as Soul City and other organizations. Government can put laws, but the law is not the end in itself. It will not work if you still have customary law in practice, where a chief is the one who rules over a rape case, and their choice of how to do justice in that is to say, we forgive the crime, just pay Taulo, and that's it. You know, so there are many layers where we fail because we are not addressing it the same way. We are not consistent, and therefore we will see this rise if all hands are not on deck. So for me, the way we can dismantle it is to look at harmful norms in the family, in our society, because that's the most area where we are failing.
Thank you so much for talking to us this morning. Phinah Kodisang is the Chief Executive Officer of Soul City Institute.